panelists today will discuss how cyber conflict is no longer a distant threat. It's a present reality, reshaping global security. Nations use cyber operations for espionage, disruption, and influence, turning the digital domain into a battleground with far-reaching consequences. Persistent tensions demand urgent strategies to prevent escalation. The challenge now is managing daily cyber threats to national security, infrastructure, and global stability. The solution lies in cyber diplomacy, de-escalation, and international cooperation to curb risks before they spiral. Before we introduce our speakers, Rohana will outline some housekeeping rules for this session. Hi, Rohana.
Welcome, everyone, and hi, Priya. So before we dive in, let me quickly run through some Zoom tips to help us have a great session together. This will be a 1-hour discussion. There will be 10 to 12 minutes allotted for our guest speakers. The last 15 minutes are allocated to the audience for their questions. Please be aware that this session is being recorded. By participating, you consent to being recorded. All attendees will be muted throughout the presentation. Only the speaker and the hosts will have their videos on. Attendees can keep their video off or on. Please use the chat box to submit questions. We'll address them during the Q&A session at the end. We recommend using Speaker View for the best experience. This recording will be submitted to various social media outlets. It will be free of charge and for educational purposes only.
Thank you, Rohana. I'm delighted now to introduce our first speaker, Oksana Denesiuk, a powerhouse in secure innovation and global cybersecurity strategy. Oksana has expertise in data analytics, generative AI, and cybersecurity, AI prompt engineering with data governance. Welcome, Olga.
Hi, Priya and Rohana, thank you. It's a pleasure to participate in this discussion, and I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my slides. Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
Can you see it now?
No, I'm still not able to see it yet.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, now it's visible.
Is it visible now? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
we can see them now, yes.
Thank you. All right. This topic is very interesting for me, and I think I took an angle in terms of looking at it as a cyber warfare and geopolitical influence. And it's really a silent battlefield, right? This new theater of conflict, it's became exposed probably 10, 15 years ago when we started having in US and globally in general started having widespread cyber attacks on the infrastructure, and definitely it became one of the top priorities. And the policy and diplomacy around this sector is still evolving, and I'm going to focus on it in the later part of my presentation. But warfare is really moved from the battlefield to the bandwidth. And of course, it is still, we still have the general warfare that is happening, and there are conflicts in the world, around the world globally, but definitely cyber warfare got added to this, so it became a part of the war basically now. And we can see it in the wars in Ukraine, my home country, and in other conflicts globally, in Syria, in Syrian war as well. It was definitely a part of the warfare. As I mentioned before, cyber warfare plans distribution was influenced. So it's not just interference in the infrastructure, but it definitely, there is a influence, and it's a leverage point for bad actors. States started using digital tools to wage quiet wars on critical infrastructure and also perception. And I'm going to touch upon it in the later part of my presentation as well, how misinformation impacting the outcomes of the war. And then technology also shapes global power, not just through hardware, but also narratives, right? So deep fakes, spreading disinformation and other things became also part of this war. It doesn't need to be infrastructure attack, but if someone can spread successfully misinformation through social media or some other channels, it definitely becomes a part of the influence, right? So, and I wanted to emphasize that in terms of missiles, yes, they're very powerful and damaging, but also it's misinformation, because if you can misinform, the country or spread misinformation successfully, and now with AI tools, it became very possible, then you have a lot of influence as a bad actor globally. And countries like like China, Russia, they invest, North Korea, they invest a lot in misinformation campaigns compared to more democratic countries. So I wanted to give a few examples of the infrastructure attacks. One was in Florida when in 2021, hackers attempted to poison water supply, and another one was in Ukraine in 2016, 2015. It's basically it attacked the power grid, and this was, I think it was a Russian hacking group related to Russian intelligence. So infrastructure in all the countries, it's became more digitized, but also more vulnerable to the attacks, right? And this is, I guess, a lesson learned for the countries and also globally, how we can make our infrastructure more secure and less vulnerable as well. So another case of it is GPS spoofing and electronic warfare. So in terms of GPS spoofing, there were examples of it. Russia used the GPS jamming in Syrian war, and also to basically interrupt NATO exercises in the past. And then in terms of civil aviation, we can see that GPS spoofing can definitely threaten global flight safety. So it's not impacting just state actors and, different states, but also it's impacting civilian aviation. And it's here we can definitely see that cyber war, it's not just digital, it has a very serious physical impact on the world safety. And then, as I mentioned before, the cognitive threats, right? We started seeing a higher number of the deepfakes. And if you look at the companies where deepfakes can impersonate executives, and that can be a very serious damage financially, then think about deepfakes impersonating some statesperson or maybe some military personnel. What kind of impact can be done by that, right? So social engineering using synthetic personas, AI-generated misinformation campaign targeting public trust. And in terms of AI-generated misinformation campaigns, it's happening now. And with AI, those campaigns became more subtle, and it's easier to spread narratives because of the scaling. And I just provided here a couple of possible responses to those threats. So narrative monitoring, sentiment tracking with LLMs, and crisis communication coordination with cyber security. And those can be done as by companies as well as state as well. I think it's more in terms of just being mindful and creating some kind of strategy in terms of monitoring these cognitive threats, and also having clear crisis communication in case of that happen. As I mentioned before, if it's happening on the company level, right, what kind of impact we can see if that's going to happen on the state level, right? So definitely having strategy around that. And I think just in general, and I know a lot of nonprofits are already doing it, but just giving or providing education to the future leaders in the state, in the government, and also in the leadership for the companies, right? Basically recognizing the cyber threat targets both infrastructure and influence in the state and also in the commercial world. Investing in AI-powered defense and counter disinformative capabilities, elevating cyber literacy across leadership, developing and refining national strategy in terms of the cybersecurity. And I know that a lot of nonprofits are already providing education in this space, free education in this space, but I don't think we are doing enough at this point, right? And I just wanted to read this quote by Michael Hayden, that cybersecurity is not about preventing every attack. It's about ensuring every attack fails to achieve its objective. So the attack might still happen, but if it fails to achieve objective that bad actors had in mind for it, it's like that basically the defending mechanism achieved its goal, right? So I think thinking about those lines, it would be helpful when creating strategy either for a company or for a state. And then basically creating and straightening cyber diplomacy. And I know like we've done a lot in general globally for the last probably 15, 20 years, just starting to develop diplomacy around this area. But I don't think there is still enough. And the reason is because the diplomacy and policy in this area is very fragmented. It's focused more nationally rather than globally. So few recommendations in terms of building it, I would say developing global cyber norms framework. So just basically creating some rules globally and formalizing those rules for civilian system, election interference, AI limits, even in the spreading like misinformation, creating a Cyber Geneva Convention for AI. I think there were talks about it, but it was not still created. And that needs to be done with the state actors, including also commercial companies, because companies like Microsoft, Google, they can provide very important resources, and they can be also basically good allies in this creation and setting up diplomacy and policy in this area. Then establishing cyber crisis hotlines, so to enable real-time de-escalation between states during the critical incidents. And last few is expanding public-private cyber alliances. And that's something I mentioned earlier. I think it would definitely help to institutionalize threat intelligence sharing and response protocol, especially because a lot of tech companies, they have more expertise in this area, and they can definitely be a good source of providing subject matter expertise and helping with the just analyzing basically technical capabilities and supporting global cyber capacity. Some of the countries, they're not there yet, especially countries that don't have budgets for cybersecurity defense, right? And I think it's important to basically provide funding, at least for training, to emerging economies to reduce global attack surface, because very often these countries become entering point for the bad actors. So that's very important. And I'm gonna skip the last slide about the policy, but I just wanna kind of reaffirm that we are still in the stage where cyber policy is still in this defensive posture, and it needs to shift to global resilience strategy. Hopefully it's going to happen in the next 5-10 years. And also countries need to start working on the governance globally versus just being nationally focused. And with that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oksana, for your wonderful presentation. So now we're moving on to our next speaker, that is Olga Nasibullina, who is also from the Ukraine. Welcome. Olga brings invaluable expertise in cybersecurity, workforce development, government relationships, and cyber diplomacy. She's the co-founder of Inside Media and the executive advisor at Cyber Ranges. Welcome, Olga. You have the floor now.
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me share my my presentation. Share. Okay, 1 second. Sorry, I think maybe I will need your help.
Yes, what happened?
Yeah, let me. I think maybe it's on my laptop, but I think I have some limitation. Okay, can I share with you by email maybe? Or
Yeah,
what
of
is
course. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
okay, 1 second. Okay, Priya, I sent you by LinkedIn if you can share it, please.
Yeah, let me just take a look. No worries. One sec.
Yeah, so maybe I will start to speak about my background, and actually thank you very much for maintaining this important discussion and negotiation. As I already shared my feedback with Priya, I went through your work, your website, and I think it's extremely important what you are doing by maintaining these dialogues. So I used to work actually, so I switched to cybersecurity, I think maybe 6 years ago, and I worked in educational project, but later I started to work with USAID cybersecurity project in Ukraine. So actually it was the first and now unfortunately the last USAID cybersecurity project. So we we helped the Ukrainian government to in workforce development, in maintaining relationships with government organization within US, and actually one of let's say, stream of this USAID cybersecurity project was building this cyber diplomacy relationships within also US government organizations. Currently I'm advising international companies how to work and to exchange and to build public-private partnerships with Ukrainian cybersecurity agencies. I see that Ukraine currently holds an huge asset of knowledge, let's say, in the first cyber war. And while Ukraine actually goes through this knowledge in real-time war, other nations have the possibility to take this knowledge and to train their people, employers, armed forces, let's say, in safe environment. So here, where cyber diplomacy also comes, because, for example, Ukrainian Cybersecurity Agency, which is, let's say, the same as CISA in US, in Ukraine the name is State Service of Special Communication and Information Protection of Ukraine. They signed during already with an invasion, they signed a lot of memorandums with other states and government organizations for sharing information. So this is a important part also of cyber diplomacy, when the country or the agency that has important information in cyberspace shares this information with its partners to prevent and to give them this important information about adversaries and about potential cyber attacks that can be done also in other states. Also, we know that, for example, NATO countries, they have Article 5, and in one of the summit, NATO leaders declared that major cyber attack can be treated as an armed attack on NATO nations. So unfortunately, we had already effects of cyber attacks of Russia Federation, for example, on Estonia. And but in this case, let's say diplomacy was only on paper, and yeah, it's correct. Yeah, thank you very much. So we can start from the first page. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So when this attack was on Estonia, NATO countries said that cyber attacks should be accepted also like an attack on country, but unfortunately these rules, it's like, you know, it's diplomacy, yeah? These rules was maintained only on paper. So that's why I gave name of the presentation, you know, like Instagram trend, cyber diplomacy slay or nay. Does it work or it's still on the paper? Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so I like very much this this phrase that not long ago diplomacy was about handshake summits and inks on paper, and today it's about firewalls, algorithm, and data flows. And we live in a world where a line of code can cross borders faster than a missile. Next slide, please. So we see that digital revolution has reshaped not only how we communicate, but how we govern, defend, and negotiate. And in this interconnected reality, cyber diplomacy has become the new frontier of international relations, because countries understood that they have also like physical front lines, but also they have cyber front lines. So it was very important to understand how we should deal within this cyberspace, global cyberspace. Okay, next slide, please. So what is cyber diplomacy? So it's on my understanding. Is the use of diplomatic tools to manage risks, conflicts, and cooperation in cyberspace. It aims to establish rules and engagement online, promote trust between nations, and prevent the weaponization of the internet. So what is today we have like a lot of some frameworks. Unfortunately, I don't see. I don't mention these frameworks here in the presentation because I actually don't see real work of all of these frameworks in life, because it, for my opinion, it's only theoretical and like written on in documents, but not applied in life. I am absolutely agree, and that we should promote trust between nations. And we see that, for example, now within like this current invasion, when Ukraine is discussing different types of aid from different countries, from partnering partners, we see already that there is a part of, let's say, physical arms, but also there are documents that discuss help in cyberspace as well. For example, if we take documents that was signed on cooperation between Ukraine and UK, so there is a part on cooperation in cyberspace, and I think it's very important that we see already such type of documents where cooperation in cyberspace has its part, real part, and was discussed. Okay, next slide, please. So why it matters? You know, probably this data that we have a huge rise of cybercrime, cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. It was already discussed and by Oksana, and of course we have this political tension in cyberspace. I don't know if you know this fact or not, but if we come back to the fact of beginning of the Russia invasion on Ukraine, there was officially named like cyber attacks before the day of invasion on critical infrastructure on energy infrastructure of Ukraine, but also in the day of the attack, Russia attacked Viasat, satellite communication, to disrupt connection of Ukrainian military forces. They didn't arrive to disrupt connection of military forces or armed forces of Ukraine, but this Viasat attack had impact on European and US citizens, like civil citizens, civil. So it's very important fact when states starts the war in cyberspace, because it impacts like civil society. As I wrote here, that cyberspace has become both a battleground and a negotiation table. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so the challenges that we face, so it's attribution, it's hard to prove who's behind the cyber attack, lack of universal norms, not all countries agree on rules of the game, and rapid tech evolution. Diplomacy moves slowly, technology doesn't. Yeah, so we now have this artificial intelligence track. We have additional track of use of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity, but also cybersecurity issues in artificial intelligence development, yeah, so itself. So here are two different but very important track. Yeah, and let's not forget that non-state actors like hackers group don't care about treaties. Yeah, it's true. And next slide. So I don't want to be very pessimistic. I'm trying to be also optimistic, but I think that such, I don't know, think tanks or initiatives like yours, I believe that it could change and make, like, for example, cyber diplomacy more practical tool. Yeah, because you are like civil organizations, civil initiative could put different organizations, experts around one table and make them speak and take some proactive decisions. For my opinion, current system, global systems in cyber diplomacy should be changed because, for the instance, it's mostly on paper. But the reality is that cyber diplomacy is not optional, it's essential, and we are the people who can change it. So thank you very much. It was my short, I don't know, inspirational talk about cyber diplomacy. I hope that it was valuable.
Thank you so much, Olga. And so sorry a little bit for technical difficulties, but we got through. So thank you so much for your
Thank you.
wonderful
Yes.
presentation.
Yes. Thank you, Olga. That was really very informative. So now that we have been able to conclude with both our presenters, I want to know if there are any questions from the audience. Please put them in the chat. We wait for that. Let's see if there's anything coming in. Nothing at the moment. So, Rohana, do you want to go for the first question? Or, you know what, hold
Sure.
on. I think what we need to do is have the presenters talk to each other. That's what we normally do. Are there any pressing questions that Oksana or Olga would like to ask each other?
Well, I don't. Maybe it will be interesting me even to hear your questions because I think like by as you planned to have two presenters from Ukraine, we are very much both aware of importance of cyberspace and cyber battlefield. We know how it works, like on practice. I don't know, but if Oksana has additional question. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. So I would like to ask Olga. Thank you for your presentation. It was very insightful. So what is the biggest challenge? I live in US for a long time, so it's been almost 15 years since I moved to US. And of course, I'm observing the war and like reading news and stuff. But I would like to know, like, what are the biggest challenges was the basically defending against cyber attacks in Ukraine currently? It's definitely different probably from the other countries where there is no war, the intensity of it and everything else. So maybe you can share a little bit. I would love to hear that. Thank you.
I think the most, let's say, not common thing that we saw during this war is that conventional attacks are combined with cyber attacks. It means that, for example, Russia launched a cyber attack on some government sites or regional administrations. And after that, they launch conventional attacks. It's the possibility to make pressure on civil society again, because if after conventional attack, people don't have access to the information, government information in the region, or I don't know, bank information or whatever, they will be stressed. So to combine conventional attacks with cyber attacks, it's additional methodology to destabilize civil society. About cyber attacks. So of course, we have like CERT-UA team. We have MilCERT in Ukraine, and they CERT-UA, for example, they made a lot of public reports on cyber attacks. It's all translated into English, and I also know that US partners also are publishing a lot of reports on cyber attacks in Ukraine, like Recorded Future. They make a lot of analysis, because what let's say a new attacks launched, cyber attacks launched by Russia on Ukraine, new technology or malware, it could be replicated to other nations. That's why for researchers and for threat hunters, it's always interesting to analyze what is happening in terms of cyber attack in Ukraine, to be prepared like in other countries.
Thank you.
Rohana, you want to go with the pressing question, or if Irene has one, please go ahead.
Yeah, I guess we can start off with the question that Irene had, as she had like popped it in the chat box as well. So
hi, Olga. Thank you so much for this very informative and interesting presentation. And my question is, how does cyber diplomacy look like in action besides the, excuse me, besides the national governments? Who are the other stakeholders? Because I understand that then companies kind of go beyond borders. And how does this look in play? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think that cyber diplomacy mostly works between governments and governmental organization, like on first place. But private companies could go in cooperation with government or agencies to facilitate this exchange of knowledges. I can provide an example that, sorry. Yeah, so for example, the case that I developed last year and still working with this case. So we have the company that I'm advising is CyberRange. Yeah, so they have technology for providing trainings. One of the best platform. Yeah, for the instance, they have very strong technologies globally, and CERT-UA, for example, CCCIP, State Service of Special Communication and Information Protection, they have knowledges and deep understanding of attacks flow from Russian threat actors. So Cyber Rangers provided its technology, its platform, that CERT-UA could develop educational scenarios on such APTs like Sandworm, Gamaredon. It's well-known big APTs, state-sponsored APTs that attack not only Ukraine but other nations as well. And so CERT-UA developed this real, let's say, real scenarios in safe environment, and now other nations can also prepare their teams, prepare their cyber professionals to be prepared to defend from these cyber actors. So I think this is also one of the tools of cyber diplomacy, when private companies can provide their technologies to facilitate this information sharing in cyberspace.
Thank you so much. And I have a quick follow-up question. So seeing, you know, the example of Elon Musk in the US government and how his company as well has played a role in the war between Ukraine and Russia, right? Do you expect that you will see more dependence of national governments on this type of big tech companies, or see the tech companies being part of the negotiating efforts when it comes to cyber diplomacy? You know, like, I don't want to think negatively about this regarding the influence, but the dependency might
Yeah,
be.
I understand. For example, I know that maybe we thought about the same example, but we've read already a lot of, let's say, negative information about Palantir, for example. Palantir was used for good, let's say, in Ukraine. We read a lot of information about Palantir said, and now we read something different about internal, let's say, US things and about cooperation of Palantir with US government. I think that it was a good sign that private companies started to cooperate a lot with government organizations. Look, the difference that was like in States, yeah, it's always United States, it always paid cooperation. In Ukraine, when the war started, a lot of companies provided the technologies, let's say, for free, just to support, to help, also to test, to see if their technology can support government organization. So it was important. Yeah, I think it's we as innovators, and it's general, not only related to cybersecurity. We should not forget that we should work, let's say, for good, and not forget. We can speak about artificial intelligence, quantum computing, but the decision relays on humans. So it's up to us to decide how we will give and provide opportunity to use our technology. Like, I don't know, you know, I don't know what exactly happening in Palantir. I don't know what exactly happening in OpenAI, because I've read also some articles that OpenAI disagreed to work with US government because they don't want to help create AI weapons, but we don't know, full truth. Also, we know how companies cooperate with media, what should be published, what not. So let's see. But I think it's personal responsibility for innovators, for leaders of big companies to use the technology for good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have question for Oksana. My first question is going to be for her, and the second one is for Olga. So the first question is, Oksana, you mentioned universal cyber regulations for, common global frameworks. What challenges do you see in the implementation of, say, a universal framework for cybersecurity?
I think it's definitely challenging because it's hard to bring all the countries on the same page, especially countries that don't have military conflicts, countries that have more resources to invest in this area, right? But it's very important. And something that Olga touched upon in terms of collaboration with the private companies, I think there should be some ethical guidelines in this area as well, like ethical guidelines, how we use AI, like how it's used in the weapons and things like that, that will be included in those global agreements, right? And again, it's very hard to enforce bad actors to comply to something like that. But if that's going to be done more on the state level and regulated by states, and state would have a vast interest in enforcing those regulations, I think that would help to somehow regulate this area and potentially create better policies for the future.
Thank you so much. And my second question is for Olga. Olga, what do you think are the measures that can be taken to support developing nations in strengthening their cybersecurity infrastructure? And also, how does cyber diplomacy work in this sphere?
I think that cyber diplomacy, it's mostly about exchange and this continuing negotiation and exchange of information between nations. And as I said previously, so this what from I see, I'm not governmental employee, but what I see as an expert that works in this sphere, government of Ukraine is very open to share, let's say, very important information, what can be to prepare a workforce, cyber workforce of other nations and organizations. So it depends only, you can, like different reports are public. It's just by interest if you want to read this, if you want to be interested in, all information is open, and I think it's very very important. I saw that different countries has like dedicated cyber diplomacy employees, and we see that it's developing. It's a bit difficult. The technology goes very fast, and as we know, government organizations are not used to work so fast as private sector. So this is the main difficulties, but maybe it will go in a good way, I think.
Thank you so much for
you.
all your answers. I think we still have a couple minutes left, so I guess I have one more question on the table. I think so far we've had such a good conversation ongoing. I think this question is for the both of you, but I think it was also highlighted in Oksana's presentation how she was mentioning that, like us as like nations, that we need to like, support and start building on these like cybersecurity, cyber diplomacy stuff. Otherwise, there's like dangers of like other countries occupying that space, right? So keeping that theme in place, my question is, what are some measures that can be taken to support, especially developing nations, in terms of like strengthening their like cybersecurity infrastructure? Because of course, all countries are vulnerable, but like especially these developing nations, I think would be more vulnerable. So like, what, in your opinion or your perspective, could be some measures that a lot of developing nations can take?
So I think some of the examples, of the private and state collaboration, like Tesla, Palantir, and some others, are great examples, like how companies can provide, the technology potentially. And in Ukraine, it's a critical example because the country is at war, right? But if we'll take maybe some of the examples where like company can provide cyber training, let's say, like platform for cyber training, and then just measure how it improved the security overall, either for a company in that state or the state in general, and things like that. So I think providing these kind of technologies, providing training and education, and making sure that the companies can implement better, companies and state as well, better infrastructure, better infrastructure for their like services, for critical infrastructure in general. I think that would be very helpful because you can see the results of that implementation and you can see the outcome. So it's very measurable, right? In Ukraine, there is a war, so people are dying every day. And it's a critical, as I said, it's a critical example where it worked in terms of companies providing the free software or like hardware support or whatever else that might be. But maybe in the country where there is no war, if they can leverage this, it can prevent them from being in the situation where these hybrid attacks with the warfare gonna happen and countries more prepared in the future for something like that. So I think it's different for different states, I guess, but there is definitely a lot of potential. And also, as I said, now with AI, was different ways of measuring it. It's very measurable, and I think it would provide the benefits for the companies, for the state, and for the civilians as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that response. I think it was wonderful. If there's anything else you'd like to add, Olga.
No, I think I'm good. Absolutely agree with Oksana.
Well,
Thank you so much.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has been an incredibly enlightening discussion. A big thank you to our amazing guests for sharing their expertise, their knowledge. And unfortunately, of course, due to time constraints, we weren't able to address all the questions or explore every aspect of the topic. However, the depth and quality of today's discussion was just remarkable. So thank you again to our panelists and to everyone who joined us today. Remember, you can stay connected with Zero Day Dispatch through our website, newsletter, our LinkedIn page, and other social media platforms, all of which I've added to our chat. We really look forward to continuing these crucial conversations. Until next time. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.